It was the summer. My son was about 2 weeks old and we needed to get out of Seattle and to go do some stuff. So we went to my family cabin, which is in the South Puget Sound here of Washington State. And obviously, because I have a newborn and I'm a photographer, I was going to take some pictures of my kids. And with that, I thought it would be fun to pull out the film that's been in my film fridge for a very long time. And it seemed like a reasonable time to try it out, which is Cinestill 50D. I've never used this film before. I thought it'd be a really fun one to pull out for a family vacation, mainly because this is a 50 ISO film. Now, the great thing about a 50 ISO film is that it is slower. And I was going to be using it in my Leica M6, which has a Voigtlander 35mm f1.4 lens on it. That said, that allows me, because this is a 50 ISO film, and usually I would be shooting something either a 200 or a 400 ISO film, that means that this film is 2 or 3 stops slower than what I usually use, which allows me to use an aperture that would be 2 or 3 stops wider, which then means that the depth of field is a little bit shallower and I have more of the thing in focus and blurry stuff behind nice and easily. That's great because, again, this being a summer vacation, it's bright, it's sunny, and there'd be a lot of days if I had like a 400 ISO film, if I was shooting Portrait 400, or like a 400 ISO black and white film that I use all the time, those I would be almost invariably shooting like f16 if I was outside, maybe f8, maybe in like twilight getting down to like 5.6 or something, but that doesn't allow for a huge amount of that depth of field. Whereas 3 stops faster, it's really easy for me to be shooting this at f2, f2.8, something like that. And that allows for that thing to be in focus with a follow-up behind. That's a stylistic choice. I really like that shallow depth of field look and stuff like that. And if you do, then this is kind of a way to be better prepared to get more of that. As this is a Cinestill film, it is worth noting that there is a lot of halation. Halation, if you watch this video, if you know what this film is, you probably know what it is already. Anyway, it's glow. It kind of looks like that light right there around highlights when there's like a really bright spot in a film or in the scene or a really like contrasty thing. Now, this is really well known. You see a lot more in something like Cinestill 800T because that film is often used at nighttime. And so when you have like a bright light at night, it's way more pronounced. But it is also very prevalent here in the daytime films. It just sometimes it's a little bit more of a subtle halation just because it's only in a contrasty scene, but if it's bright to not quite as bright, then maybe that isn't quite as pronounced of a halation that you might have in other uses of Cinestill films. Some of my favorite photos of this whole weekend were these portraits here of my parents. We had been down in our, during low tide, the way our beach kind of like slopes down and then it gets really flat for a while, and so we were playing in the flat part, which is fun just because there's only a few days a year where it's warm enough out during low tide that you can actually like go and play in that water. And so we were out there and it was like super calm, and so it was cool to make these portraits just because this is a house that my mom grew up going to, and that my dad, since the passing of my grandparents, has really helped to kind of make his own as well, and so they both have really important memories. I mean, I think they did their engagement session on that beach like 40 years ago, so it's important to them. So with that, it was really fun to just have this quick, like, I've got 2 minutes. Hey, mom, go stand over there. Can I take a couple portraits of you? Dad, can I take these couple portraits of you? And I don't know, it's just fun to make images like these and to have that practice. But also, as much as like I spent a lot of time photographing my kids, I also want to make sure that I photograph all the important people in my life, just because life changes and photos generally don't. It's not Harry Potter. Conversely though, as much as a 50 ISO film is great for daytime photos, there's the obvious problem that it will struggle when you get into twilight. I had caught the biggest salmon of my life, which is this 28-pound fish. Really proud of it. Super cool, super tasty. 6 months later, I'm still eating it.
Wow, look at how big that is! You're having a hard time holding it.
Because our cabin is east facing and has a big hill behind it, we're in shadow a lot of the evening light. And so as much as like twilight would be pretty, it was pretty dark. And so there's a lot of these moments as I'm trying to photograph this fish where I was taking photos at like a 15th of a second, an 1/8 of a second, which is fine for a stationary object, a stationary subject, but if it requires any movement, that's kind of a problem. Like this photo of my dad, I really should just not have used that camera because it was the wrong camera, wrong film, like I had other options. I should have used them, but it's what I did, and that's why it's super, super blurry. So it's just something to keep in mind as, you know, if you're going to use this on a family vacation, you probably want to make sure you're only using this during the daytime. And then that if you're going to be photographing in the evenings or something like that, either that you have a flash available or some other way of documenting your life. That said, I believe the film canisters are DX coded, so if you're putting in a point and shoot, it should know what film it is and be able to take things accordingly. Another thing that's well known about this film is that it's often warm. Online, I'd seen a lot of examples of it, and it looked like someone who just was really bad at adjusting the warmth slider in Lightroom and just always had this like creamy warm, but not like creamy warm, but like creamy, like a t-shirt that you haven't used bleach on in way too long and it's not white anymore. It's kind of that like creamy white. That's kind of what it always looked to me. And so I was a little bit trepidatious pulling in and using this film just because I didn't want that look. That said, in practice, I don't think it was quite that bad. I think that those are exaggerated in those photos, and maybe that's a style that those particular photographers liked. It definitely was warm. Like if I had been using Portrait 400 or Gold 200 or any of the normal films, it definitely is natively warmer than those films are, but not to quite a disgusting state that I thought, that like I feared. Also, this film was really easy to scan. That might be because of the lower ISO and the it just was easy to scan, but also because of that lower ISO, I might have more accurately exposed it better than a lot of other times. And so but it really was easy to like scan and then put through Lightroom Lab Pro, convert, export. It just looked good. So what's my verdict? Would I use this again? And yeah, I definitely would. Would I use this again for my family vacation photos? Yeah, probably not. The main two reasons being just the extra warmth that it put into the photos, and then also the difficulty of using 50 ISO film in twilight times, and lastly the halation. All of those factors and stuff, just because like a vacation has daytime, but it also has nighttime. And if I want to just kind of be using one camera and be trying to be more present, probably having a more versatile film would fit better. That warmth, like I said, it's not as bad as I thought it could be, but I don't love the look. And then definitely the halation. Halation is cool and has its moment, but I don't know if I loved it like around the portrait of my mom or around the portrait of me. I kind of wish those photos were just a little bit cleaner than they actually are. Lastly, I don't know if I'd use it just because it's more expensive. Right now, this film is $14.99 on B&H, whereas a roll of Gold 200 is $11.99. But that said, if you're paying for development, let's say that costs $15, then to do a roll of this start to finish costs $30 out of pocket, whereas a roll of Gold 200 would be $27 out of pocket. When you're spending that much money, the difference of $3 kind of matters less. But if you're like buying gold in bulk and you're doing your own development, that's when like the price feels a lot bigger, or the price difference feels a lot bigger, and it becomes a little bit more important, at least for me, to figure out how to kind of balance that out. That said, if you've ever used 50D before, what are your thoughts? If there's anything that I missed, there's any way that I could use it better in the future, let me know. And thanks for watching. Oh my gosh, we're gonna do this again because somehow the audio didn't save on my phone. But I probably can do a better job the second time around. And I sing my songs. Holy moly, what is the score of this? 4-0? Goodness. Brazil is good at the footballs.